All right, so fired up to have Chris Yonker here. And Chris is become a friend recently and is just a wealth of knowledge in the world of advising family enterprises, family businesses, and helping really go deep on what families are all about and the dynamics behind these businesses. And so I think we're gonna have a really interesting conversation today to talk to you a little bit about where AI meets people and how can we actually get successful adoption, buy-in, and all of these things. So Chris, such a pleasure to have you here, man, and would love to have you kind of start off, maybe share a little bit more about your background and what you work on.
Yeah, so a quick bio. Yeah, so I came from corporate. I worked at 3M for over 25 years and doing executive coaching. I work with Tony Robbins, original mentor, got certified at NLP. I'm now studying with Thomas Hubel, bringing in the trauma aspect of the family enterprise. And so, in essence, what we do is we help family businesses navigate change, really. And that could be succession. It could be rising, rising the next gen in regards to getting folks
Yep.
like could be your age who are maybe going to be inheriting wealth or stepping into a family system and wanting to lead. And so getting that person ready for what the new future is going to be, which
Yep.
is totally different than where things have been. So that's the aspect of what we do. And one thing I want to add in that regard is I think is times are changing faster than they ever have before.
Absolutely.
Um, and the folks that have context into this, and this is globally, is that we have to become people who can relate to the pace of change without disconnecting from our relationships to ourselves and one another. So the work that we do becomes even more paramount in relationship to things like artificial intelligence and how it's, and people don't realize, but literally starting to take over the future of where things at, right? Like
Yeah.
I was gonna, did you see the article that just came out recently with it was I think it might have been Elon Musk, but there's who's traveled overseas to raise money, or either that or Jeff Bezos, where they're looking to build infrastructure with robotics and AI
Sure. Yeah.
to totally realign manufacturing,
Yep.
right? And there's a ton of money going into that, and that they're just there's indicators like everywhere in regards to, and this is not this it's where the future will be and how things are going to change.
And one thing that I'm sure we've both seen is a lot of times when there's big new transformative change, it's usually the CEO and
Mm.
kind of folks in the C-suite that really lean in and try to take on this initiative. And I know for a lot of the groups that that I've worked with, it's been the CEO who will primarily lead the engagement
Yeah.
overall. And so I'm kind of curious on just over the years from the many C-suite
Yeah.
teams that you've worked with,
Yeah.
how can folks kind of at the front line help foster buy-in and support and all of these things that are so critical to organization success.
And when we look at something like AI touches all of us. So
Yeah.
we're not someone's not bringing something in that people don't have access to, right? Because they
Yeah.
already have access to whisper on their phone, or they may have already been using GPT, or they're familiar with these ideas.
Yeah.
The alpha generation, um, they they're the next gen, right? And then you got Gen Z. So each of these generations have already probably have a layer like yourself of comfort with technology.
Yeah.
And so we have to know that that's in the ecosystem of where we are. But what we're really looking to do is, I think with AI, it's or anything aspect of technology, it's a bit overwhelming. And that's part of the benefit of what you guys provide is some guidance on where to start
Yeah.
in regards to where I may want to look at implementation. But I think it's important to understand is that any time that we're looking at change navigates, activates the nervous system. We are, as human beings, our subconscious mind is not comfortable with the idea of change.
Yeah.
So we have to own that that is here, and it's okay if
Yeah.
we don't feel comfortable. And the families and leaders that are start having conversations, the more we call psychological safety they can create in the family system, in the business system, the executive team, the board, however their infrastructure is and governance, the more safety we can talk about how do we feel about it, where are our concerns, where are our issues. Not the same, you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
It's okay. This is how I'm comfortable, and let's talk about our comfortability. But I think creating an environment and an ecosystem that has a high field of psychological safety, maybe working with someone that can help do that, I think an accelerator and an integrator. Because what we're talking about is where do I adopt this, and how do I get full adoption across the board,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And if the family ownership isn't aligned, then the whole ecosystem will start feeling that, and it starts creating a throw off in regards to what happens or doesn't happen.
And especially, I think what might be insightful as well is just across generations, right? Where, younger generations are, more accustomed to this technology. They're using it in their day-to-day life, right? And so, how can, younger members of these family businesses, how can they kind of, you know, utilize the knowledge
Yeah.
that they have and help
question.
bring it right across the
So
organization?
here,
Yeah.
an idea would be is perhaps you create a committee.
Yeah.
And a committee, you could take a family leader or a rising generation and say, hey, here, you want to have some ownership of something.
Yeah.
Maybe you're gonna run this committee. And right now the committee's got a task. And the task is to explore where we might leverage AI right now,
Yeah.
and how we want to leverage adoption, and or also how do we want to even work with our tech support company and relationship to assuring that we're not only have cybersecurity. I think there's probably some crossover here, because I think when we get into AI in particular, people are very concerned about, well, what happens to all my shit when it goes in there,
Yeah.
and what do the people know? If we're talking about, if I load in information about my strategic plan,
Yeah.
or the marketplace, or I'm going to do a SWOT and SOAR analysis and bounce it off of AI.
Yeah.
Has that also become available?
Yeah.
for someone
Which
else?
is a real threat.
How do you answer that question out of curiosity to folks that are thinking about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think if folks are just generically using your Claude or your Chat GPT and you're not paying for a license, you're giving these companies full reign to go and use that data wherever they want to use it. Versus if you're, buying and yes, it costs maybe, $40 a month, depending on, which platform you use. But ultimately they are not training on your data. And so by buying, a paid license, that's how you're able to really go about making sure that they're not training on your data and using however they want.
And I think also you can probably protect. You could come up with names if you want. If you're really concerned, you could come up with a code names for what we're going to call our company or we'll call our business, right?
Yeah.
If that gave you another layer of feeling good. But I think the challenge that you have, like even when I was with 3M and we were doing CRMs and bringing CRMs on board, the number one challenge isn't the strategy, and it's not building out process. It's getting people to adopt and follow through on the process that you do. So if you're not clear on what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you're not aligned as a front, when I'm asking you to change and slow down to enter something or do something that might, because I think sometimes we need to slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it. You're gonna buck the system, right?
Yeah.
And then the more that it's like a stress test. There's a level of resistance that I think we need to expect. We'll create the safety and work with folks, and then the follow through, and just hold the expectation. But in regards to what we do or don't do, I think it's really important that folks are working with companies like yours to get relevance in where the hell do I start? Like I've sent a family to you recently. Like, well, we're looking at all these things. There's typically a starting point somewhere where we can start exploring and adopting. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I had a question for you, Chris. I think folks will really resonate with around, the big impact of where applied AI in businesses today is making the greatest, positive impact. It's not necessarily at the chatbot level. It's when you're able to design systems that, understand the way that people are working now and the way that people interact currently, right? And then it's able to redesign their workflow.
Hmm.
And so the issue with that, especially at, companies that may have, employees who've done something a certain way for a long period of time, is that there is this massive amount of change where, their workflow is going to be fundamentally different than what it was prior. And so, you know, you've worked with so many organizations, Chris. I think you have such a wealth of knowledge to kind of share with the group of, not just within one org, but you've looked at so many. What are some of the primary reasons that folks feel like they're not on board, that they feel like they're not being a part of it? And how can we help them not drag their heels so that they...
I think, well, with AI, we have to own their fear that the technology is going to replace them. I think that's something that's probably in the room with individuals.
Yeah.
And I'd say that perhaps the technology may replace part of what you do. And we're all getting called into really understanding the versatility of our role in regards to what we do and how we do it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be necessary because the fact of the matter is, if we don't get on board with the change, we are going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And perhaps we are going to be replaced, but at least by someone else that gets it. And it's not, I'm not trying to create more additional fear on top of the fear, but I think owning the fact that my intention and commitment is not to replace you with technology is something that we got to get into. Also, I think there's sometimes we get with people who are very good at what they've done, and what they've done has worked really, really well, up to now. But just what something, and I commonly say, just because something's worked really well up to now, doesn't mean that that's what's going to work really well going forward.
Sure.
And I think that's an assumption that we make, that, well, shit, I've done this for so long. I figured this out. I have the efficiencies. I'm a master at it. Does that mean I stop? I mean, I look at this almost from also a martial artist lens. I mean, I've been studying the same martial arts system for 40 years. And I still look at movement through the eyes of a student, like the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
And I feel that philosophy is really important in relationship to how we transfer the knowledge and wisdom of what we do to an infrastructure, and then also being willing to be flexible in our behavior modification so we can generate new outcomes.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to be necessary to compete. Because quite frankly, if we don't, then our competitors will. And then that starts affecting our market position as a greater good. So at times, the other part of your answer is my job on working with leadership teams, executive teams, and ownership is getting us to move from me to we.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that if I can focus on we, if I can help the greater we get to where we want to go, that I don't have to sacrifice where I want to go, that I can still get to where I want to go, then we can get a better sense of unification and people working together.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of power in that. And, I know certainly something that we've seen is how can you, like AI adoption is such a broad topic, right? And there's so many different ways you can go in. And so as we're looking at, the first 30 days or the first 60 days, right? I think it's so important, especially for leadership. And I think having a task force that you pull together where you have, the right executive sponsors, you have someone with technical guidance and governance capabilities.
Yeah.
And then, obviously you then need to pair that with the actual operators, right?
That's right.
Who understand their day-to-day work and their workflows. And so I think it's so powerful to kind of bring all of these groups together in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, people are going to want to be heard. And I don't have any resistance if someone wants to put a naysayer on the team. Put someone in that's got the critical eye on the team and really, truly slow down, create space, and open up to listen to them, to give input. Because if they have input and ownership, they can end up being a champion, right? Because you're going to want champions strategically throughout the organization, and then say, hey, you know what? Let's explore this with curiosity. Let's 30 days at a time. Let's focus. Let's define what's success. Success might be, I just want to learn something. I want to A/B split test an idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think in our world we think that the end in mind is, well, I've got to increase operating. Sure, we want to increase operating income. We want to reduce expenses. We want to minimize risk. That's what CEOs want to do. Yeah. Those are all important things. But I think we have to work upstream to what leads to those things and start testing ideas and just be open to possibility And I think entering from that field and getting clear on what we're going to measure, whatever that is, whatever, regardless of what that is, and being okay with what happens, then you'll start getting some layer of traction. You can start building on that. But one thing at a time, not 5 things at a time,
Yeah.
not 7 things at a time. One
Easier
thing at a
said than
time.
done.
Yeah, one thing at a time is going to be the key
Yeah.
for implementation. Yeah.
Absolutely. I had a question for you, Chris, around celebrating wins. Like, I think it's so important when, early stage folks, or, for early in the adoption process, right? Where if someone has found a new way to do something that is, meaningfully more efficient and it makes their life a lot easier and they can spend more time on the things that they
Yeah.
actually want to be doing their time
Yeah.
on, right? The higher leverage things.
Yeah.
How should teams be thinking about kind of celebrating wins and really amplifying the champions within the organization?
Well, I think sometimes it's defining what win is. And sometimes winning can be realizing what didn't work too.
Yeah,
Right?
true.
It's being
100%.
open to that. It's like, well, we're looking for an outcome, and let's celebrate the outcome. And I think sometimes we assign too much meaning to what success has to look like. And then that sounds kind of weird, but the fact of the matter is, if I can take feedback and adjust behavior and modify and continue to move forward and learn from that, which is adjusting behavior,
Yeah.
then I will make progress. And progress is never fully linear. But absolutely, we want to be able to, without blowing sunshine and being transparent and being authentic, we want to bring recognition to where improvements being had so that we can realize it.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time to jam and just giving some folks here in New Hampshire insight into how can we be thinking about making our teams as prepared as possible and as excited and energized as possible for the AI revolution. I know a belief that we deeply share is our family businesses, like, this isn't one that we can sit out, right? Like, private equity is spending tens of billions of dollars. Large companies are spending tens of $billions on data infrastructure, on applying AI into these companies. They are changing the infrastructure and the operating systems of these companies, and this isn't one that we can sit out on.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here with me.
Awesome.